And at the end of the meeting, I guess the topic of resume came up again, and Greg, he's had his resume ready to go, slid it across the table, had his name, his address, his phone number, email, and then it just had one line underneath that: I get shit done.
But I believe the great is still yet to come. I won't stop fighting, man, until I'm done.
I've adopted the principle that I do things the way I want to do things, and the things that I'm morally comfortable with. But then I always take a chance. And the last thing before because these guys are going to speak at some point, I promise. The last thing I talk about is music. And actually, David and I were just having this conversation when Richie was upstairs. I consider myself purely junior varsity. I play the guitar, I write songs. I've performed with my buddies who are musicians. And for years, I didn't do it. Gosh, it's probably almost 20 years ago now. But I wrote a couple songs, and I left them sitting out. And one of my dear friends and his, actually my other buddy's girlfriend, were reading them unbeknownst to me. And I came in the room, and they were basically ripping them to shreds. I mean, they were saying, what the flip is this, and you can't write, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it put me on the spot. Like, I thought to myself, you know what, they're right. What the hell am I doing? I can't do this. This is... So I put that down for years. And it actually was like one of those, it was almost like a bullying moment, like where they wouldn't let it go. So I started back up. I guess thank goodness. Well, there's a couple things. Thank goodness for the pandemic, only for a couple reasons. Obviously, the loss of life and whatnot is massively tragic. But it did a couple things for us, like golf, for example. Would you rather be in a movie theater, a crowded bar, or outside hitting golf balls? Well, guess what? Golf is blowing up, still blowing up, because people like to be outside because of the pandemic. The other thing was that during that time, I got a real estate license, and then I picked the guitar back up again. And through encouragement from my friend Matty J, and shout out to Matty J and Greg Heitner and Chip, they encouraged me to write some songs, get into a studio. And the music that I'm writing and performing is basis of some of the stuff that we do on the Breakfast Ball. But I actually had a couple of people inquire about buying some of the songs that I wrote, and I'm like, that blew me away. And I have an enormous regret for stopping what I stopped years ago, knowing what I know now, like knowing how this golf school works, knowing how successful Rutgers has been, knowing that we have our own podcast now. And I think, Richie, you re-quoted George Patton. What was the quote that you gave us last week again with the...
a good plan executed now... Adapt the table. A good plan executed now is better than a great plan executed later.
Yeah, that's so true. So that's the premise we live by now. So I'm doing that, and I do what I want to do within my moral compass. But guess what? I don't know if we curse on the podcast. I don't know. The
maybe minor.
So
But you can bleep it in the editing.
Yeah, well,
how good of an editor do you think I am? I don't know.
A shout out to my friend Greg, who was asked to consult with a TV network years ago, and he went in and he's done consulting for some major companies, and they brought him in once to do some consulting, and I guess after he gave his presentation, the one of the guys in the boardroom said, "Well, this is fantastic, sir, but do you have a resume?" And he's like, "A resume? Like, you asked me to come here." So they had another meeting subsequently, let's just say a month later, and he comes in, and at the end of the meeting, I guess the topic of resume came up again, and Greg, he's had his resume ready to go, slid it across the table, and had his name, his address, his phone number, email, and then it just had one line underneath that: I get shit done. And I'll tell you what, man, that is, I love that. That's the wheelhouse of where I live. So Greg, more power to you, but that's my belief system.
Glass of bourbon, ha ha. My bourbon, ha ha. My bourbon, ha ha. Alcohol, because no great story ever started with, I'll have a salad.